I assume they weren't metal and they just happened to shine strangely for whatever reason. I mean, his eyes glowed, so it's not so far-fetched to think, well, his teeth are strange too. But I'm just staring at him and he's staring at me and we've locked eyes. I'm just sitting there doing nothing. And he starts to stand, and I realize that he stands bipedally, that he stands like a man. And he's slowly standing, his eyes locked on mine, and I managed to reach over and take my car out of park. But I'm still just kind of almost in a daze, staring at this thing. And then he opened that mouth, which I kept staring at thinking, okay, there's something in the mouth that can't be the mouth. That can't be the mouth. But no, that was the mouth. He slowly started to open that mouth, and I finally unfroze. And that's when I just slammed my foot onto the gas. And of course, my car starts to fishtail. I have this horrific moment where all I can think of is it's going to be me alone in the ditch with the werewolf. My brain is screaming, werewolf.
Hi guys, thank you all so much for joining me back here again on the 401 Files. It's an absolute pleasure, as I always say, to be joined by so many like-minded people from all around the world. Now, if you do have an interest in things like UFOs and extraterrestrials, strange cryptids and even the paranormal, then you've landed in the right place. Without further ado guys, please do kick back, relax and enjoy. Absolutely stunning place, as a lot of the places that I go to are. Lily's just enjoyed 5 minutes going down the lazy river. This is quite a strong current inside here. I mean, it's not dangerous, it is a narrow river, there are lots of logs overhanging and the embankment does start to protrude in areas, so she's always got places to get out, but it's just been really good watching her have so much fun. And she's now just running around and eating grass, living her best life, and it's a pleasure to see. So I'm really lapping this up and enjoying this moment.
Here in the UK, the legends of werewolves run deep. These creatures were feared and revered. To our ancestors here, their existence was not romantic, nor was it mystical, but rather a brutal reality. Stories have always circulated about cursed beings who transform from men to savage beasts, driven by an insatiable hunger and primal instinct. Their howls were said to pierce the night, striking fear into the heart of anyone who would dare to venture into their territory. To the ancients who lived here, werewolves were not creatures or folklore, but rather living nightmares that prowled the moors and forests of this ancient land.
So today should be a really good day, as it always is when I get time to spend it with you guys. As I said at the start of this video, like-minded people that share very similar interests, and we don't always have to agree, that's not the rule. We can disagree, but we do it in a mature, adulty fashion, which I really do respect from the group of people or the following that I've made here on the 401 Files. We always present ourselves in a really respectable manner. We never shame or ridicule anybody, regardless of how crazy they may sound. I've met some really crazy sounding people in my life that actually wasn't entirely all that crazy. They had an element of truth to some of the things that they were saying. Now that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for, 100% honesty. Like, that's not what I go out searching for. It's great if I find it, don't get me wrong. It's great if I find someone with a really credible, solid story that they wish to share with me, but I love the phenomena. I love the cryptids, I love the paranormal, I love the UFO and extraterrestrial phenomena. And regardless of how that presents itself to me, I'm willing to entertain it. Even if I don't believe it, I don't have to walk away from a conversation with somebody and feel bad for not believing. As long as I'm respectable, as long as I'm entertaining that person, giving them an ear to talk to, then I don't have to live with them. I don't have to shame or ridicule. So what does it matter to me if I'm stood there for 15-20 minutes listening to a guy that wants to talk about his experience or what he believes was his experience? I'm totally fine with that. I've had things to me, or I've had things happen to me in my life that most people would think are crazy, me included, that turned out to be 100% a part of my reality, a part of my life that has stuck with me ever since. So, I'm not the judge, I'm not the jury, I'm just a guy with an interest in these phenomena that likes to meet other like-minded people who share an interest. And I think that that's what we do really, really well here on the 401 Files, is that we all share that same standpoint. We all go through life carrying ourselves and presenting ourselves in that fashion, which makes us look great, because there are some channels out there where it's just torture. Like, it's complete hell for anybody trying to open up and speak on any of these subjects, because the minute they do, they get shut down, they get laughed at, they get a load of meme or whatever they're called these days, I don't know, hurtful comments, and it's just not the environment that I ever wanted to create here. And the minute anybody ever showed a sign of that, I cut them people straight out. And I don't care if they've had a believable story or the most amazing encounter you could ever think of. The minute they start being disrespectful to anybody, they're gone, because that's not the environment that I want here, and I'm really pleased that we don't. So yeah, anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm waffling. When we talk about Bigfoot, I think in order of magnitude, the number one piece of evidence to support Bigfoot is eyewitness testimony. And a lot of the time, especially in the scientific community, I feel like people still have strong biases. And just because they personally don't believe in Bigfoot, they're not willing to take into account the abundance of these credible eyewitness testimonies. And that is quite sad, really, because it doesn't get the attention that it deserves. It's almost laughed away. And yet it's laughed away by people who say that they are scientific in their approach. The thing about being scientific means that you could deal with something, or you could be investigating or conducting experiments on something that is so beyond your belief system, so wacky and out there, that you just don't want to entertain it, but you do because you're scientific. And until the evidence suggests that this thing is not real or doesn't exist, then you're more than welcome to step away from the phenomena and show it no more interest. But people don't do that. People just don't start the investigations. People don't start the research in a manner that I feel is thorough enough, because they've already got this preset bias that it's not real, it doesn't exist, and therefore I'll only give it less than half my time. That's a shame. For me anyway, that's a shame. And, the scientific community will always fall back and say, well, how are we supposed to investigate or research something that falls under the realms of paranormal, that we can't physically touch or do tests on? But there are so many discoveries that we've made out in space that we can't physically touch, we can't physically bring into a lab and do the research on, but yet we still write papers on them. We still put them on TV shows like documentaries and in books and sell them in shops, and this information, I just can't get my head around it. Like, to me, it blows my mind. So this is it. This is my shelter setup. Really quick and easy. And as I always say, it's not supposed to be the Hilton. You know, this is never going to be a 5-star hotel with a little mini fridge. This is wild camping in the woods alone. And the purpose of this tarp is to keep the water off me, to keep the rain off me, which I think this will do perfectly. It serves no other purpose. It's not going to keep me warm. It's not going to protect me from anything moving through this forest on the night. It's not going to make me feel any safer because it is just literally a thin piece of material with the sole purpose of keeping me dry. So it's doing its job, and that's all it needs to do. My sleeping bag will keep me warm, my airbed will keep me warm, but nothing is going to take away from the fact that tonight is going to be creepy as hell. No equipment that you get, no amount of expertise living in the wilderness is going to make a night out in these areas any less scary. I received a really interesting email a few weeks back, and if you are the guy that sent me this, thank you so much for sharing this interesting account. And you know, one thing I loved about this email was that he was openly honest. A lot of people will try and hide this or keep this out of the conversation, but this guy said that he was with his friend, and they were both getting stoned, both getting high on weed, and they were lied out under the stars when they saw this huge flash just illuminate the sky above them. And instantly they both saw it, and they both said that it was like someone had just taken their photograph with the flash on. It was that big. Now, for anybody that knows me personally, they'll be able to attribute to this that I don't drink, I don't do drugs, and I've seen these flashes, these random flashes that illuminate the night sky. And I'm not just talking the odd pinprick of light just bursting into existence off in the distance. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm talking about a full illuminated sky, like a flash. And I've always just put that down to satellites moving through space. Maybe as they rotate, the light from somewhere is hitting the panels, which gives off this flare. But I never actually thought about it as somebody taking a photograph. And I'm not saying that is what's happening. Like, why would somebody be up there in space, in whatever kind of machinery or craft or ship, taking photos of two guys getting stoned? Why would that be a thing? Like, I'm not saying it is, I'm not saying that's what happened, but who's to say who is up there taking photographs? We all know that the US military and the even us Brits, we'll probably have things up there taking pictures out in space, back down here at Earth, potential nuclear sites and military establishments, things like that in foreign countries. It's just weird when you think about that, like people, beings, objects, crafts, whatever it is up there, looking back down at us, taking photographs. And to what extent, like how far do they go with this? Is this like just a photograph of a bird's eye view, like a large area, we're talking hundreds of miles across, or is this really individual people that they could photograph? I've seen movies like where they have drones and they search for key players, big names, terrorists that are on the wanted list, and they literally zoom right in to the glasses on their face and, you know, their wedding ring on their hand. It's just insane what we can do and what we are doing. How is that not a breach of privacy? And would extraterrestrials use this same strategy, this same idea, to be up there taking pictures of people down here on Earth, and for what reason? Yeah, anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you because this guy did contact me and say that he had this experience. I thought it was really interesting that they both were laid there looking out at the stars when they saw this big flash come from above. And I also like the way that they put it. They described it as, we thought someone had taken our photograph. Sounds stupid on the face of it, but really, is it? It's very possible. But for what reason?
This fella had apparently been on a date with this girl parking somewhere, and this very strange occurrence took place with them. And the guy apparently came to their home, and he was in shock. And he ended up being taken to the hospital that night. And but anyhow, this creature was apparently standing right next to their vehicle, looking directly at them. And if I recall, he had glowing red eyes, about 8 feet tall, as I recall. I have to go back and look at the whole report. But anyhow, they were both very, very frightened over this whole thing. And this fellow apparently had some kind of like a sunburn red effect on his face. Something like a sunburn, which of course did not happen during the time of the experience. So anyway, it's a very, very fascinating case.
So I'm just walking down this logging route behind me. And I do like walking down logging routes because we hear a lot about them. They're always popping up in cryptid stories, especially like Bigfoot and Dogmen stories. They're usually inserted somewhere in those kind of encounters. We hear people saying things like, oh, we was in the middle of nowhere. The only way that you could get to where we was camped was down this old logging route. Or people will say things like, yeah, we were just walking down this logging route and up in front of us, outstepped from the bushes, a dogman or a Bigfoot type creature. It always seems to pop up, and for that reason, I do like walking on them. I like walking down these tracks. And I guess another element to why it makes me feel a certain vibe or a certain way is because not everyday people, dog walkers, etc., bar me right now, obviously, but not everyday people are using these tracks. It's usually people with specified professions like forestry commission or gameskeepers, people who are contracted to come and do the logging in this area. They're the people that are using these tracks, and that doesn't happen every single day. So, when you hear a story of somebody experiencing something or seeing something down one of these logging routes, it adds a layer of credibility. I'm not sure why that is. Some people might disagree, but it certainly makes me feel a certain way. And so for that reason, I do enjoy walking down these logging roads. It's getting to that time of night where the temperature is noticeably dropping, and it becomes lonely. But more than that, it becomes eerie. I was just thinking, a lot of my subscriber fan base is from like Canada and the US, also here in the UK as well, massively. But I think the reason that I'm able to keep a lot of my US fan base and people from Canada is because the places that I take you guys to are almost undistinguishable. Like, you cannot tell the difference. And in fact, I get a lot of comments from people asking me what part of the US I'm from. I'm not. I'm from the UK. And the only real difference is the scale. The scale is massively different. Obviously, I live here on an island, but it's not a small island by any means. However, it's nothing to be compared to when we talk about Canada and the US. But when we're talking about the subjects and the phenomena that we talk about here on the channel, does that even really matter? We're talking about things that can potentially shapeshift, slip through dimensions, and disappear without a trace. Now, when you're talking about a creature with those kind of abilities, scale means nothing. Scale means absolutely nothing. And we've found certain species here on Earth in people's back gardens. Like a small residential home that has a little plot of land, and lo and behold, there's a species that's never been discovered before living in that area. Now that's a creature with no special abilities, no weird or strangeness going on. So when I'm out in areas like this, yes, I'm here in the UK, yes, I'm on an island, but we're talking about subjects and phenomena that we can't even comprehend, we cannot understand. This creature doesn't care about size or scale, unless we're talking about it being flesh and blood. And a lot of the times here on the channel, I don't. I talk about it being more extraterrestrial or paranormal or those kind of things. Now, that's not to say, and I'm actually not saying this right now, that it can't be flesh and blood. If it is, I'll be as happy as everybody else. And it will not stop my pursuit of the unexplained. It'll just mean that it's opened up different avenues and I'll have to look at certain things in different ways. But for me, you know, I'm really, to go back onto what I was saying originally, I'm really pleased that a lot of I hate saying the word fans, so I'll say subscribers. A lot of my subscribers from the US, from Canada, I love that you guys have stuck around because you do enjoy the scenery, you enjoy the places that I'm taking you. And as I've just said, and as you can see, it's almost undistinguishable. I could tell you guys right now that I'm on an old logging route in Canada somewhere, you know, in the far reaches of Canada, and you probably wouldn't be able to tell. I love this part of the night. Some people might feel uncomfortable, out of place, but this is the time of night that I really do enjoy. I know it's going to be a long night. I know there's going to be a lot of eerie moments where my mind will try and convince me that there is something happening that maybe isn't. But the scary part of that is that sometimes it could be. Sometimes we try and tell ourselves that, oh, it's just the sound of the river, or it's just deers pushing through the undergrowth. But we know from experience, and I know from listening to countless experiences from real life people, that it can't always be that, and it isn't always that. And so because of that 1%, that little small element of truth to some of these experiences, these witnesses, and the things that they've seen, it makes every single night that you're out here exploring a night to take serious, a night to be on edge, a night to go back and be a child again, have that wonder, that awe of what is it, what if. And I find that addictive. Like, it's almost in a weird way slowing down time, not becoming older and getting caught in the ever expanding speed of society. I'm out here doing something different. Not a lot of people get to experience this, and so I'm really fortunate and pleased to be in a position that I still can. I can still get out here, I can still take you guys that have this interest out into these places and see what we can come up with, see what we can find, if anything at all. It's also reassuring as well that I've got the kit. The correct kit is important, and so when temperatures do drop, when the weather or the skies do open, I can just jump in a nice tent that isn't going to blow away and get wrapped up in a sleeping bag that isn't going to fail me. I'm going to keep warm. And without those things, this probably wouldn't be possible. So I just tried to get the night vision working, and it lasted for about a minute and then it died. So that's my fault. I never fully charged the battery since I last used it. So note to self, when I get back in the morning, the night vision camera has to go back on charge. I was just sat here now talking to the camera, which is essentially talking to myself. And I started to think, there'll be a lot of people who watch my channel and just think, what on earth? Like, what are you doing? Why would you spend painful hours in the freezing cold, middle of nowhere, talking to essentially what is myself? What am I hoping to achieve? What am I hoping to capture? And is it realistic? Like, what are the chances of me getting out here on this one occasion and seeing something that I can record that's of any interest? And if I'm realistic, if I'm honest with myself, the chances are slim to none. I mean, in 6 years of doing this, I've probably caught about 4 pieces of really good footage that I would present to anyone in order for them to try and challenge it. So that's 4 pieces of really good quality footage of things that are strange or unexplainable in 6 years. It's not a great deal. But I don't care. I don't care if it's 1 piece of footage in 10 years. This is why I do it. This is why it's called the unexplained. We don't know when these things occur. We don't know what the patterns are of how they come to be. You just have to be in the right place at the right time and hope to God that you're pressing record on the camera. But I know one thing for sure. Although the chances of me capturing anything groundbreaking are very slim, they're even slimmer sitting at home. There are moments when you're sitting here, it's 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, and you're thinking, what the hell am I doing? Why am I here? I have that all the time. But as I've always said, when you get back home and you go through the footage and you upload it, it's all worthwhile. Like sitting in the warmth of your house, looking back at a freezing cold night that you just conquered. I could have been doing 1,000,001 other things. I could have been lying in bed, fast asleep in my comfort zone. But here I am looking at my computer screen, braving the elements and proud of myself in some ways that I did that. When you're in the forest on your own and you're just looking through the trees, like I am right now, you see the bit where it gets dark, it just kind of drops off into a darkness, like a dark abyss. I challenge anybody, regardless of how brave you think you are, just to walk off into that abyss by yourself. You see, we can all be brave from the comfort of our own living rooms. We can all be brave when we're in large groups of people doing tree knocks and whooping sounds. You know, when there's 5 or 6 of us surrounded by a ton of equipment. But I'm here on my own. I'm here on my own, and I really would love to walk off into that abyss and just keep walking ahead. But I'm not feeling it. And some nights I would do that. Some nights I do that. But you've got to read the room. And if it doesn't feel right, you just don't do it. And like tonight, I'm looking through there and I'm thinking, no, I'm not doing that. I am not about to walk off through there. And there's no particular reason. I've not heard anything. I've not seen anything. But I'm just looking ahead and I think it doesn't feel right. You have to be really in tune with those warning signs that your body is giving you, because that's what's kept us alive for so long. If we just ignore them and we walk off into that abyss, who knows what might happen? And it might not even be something to do with the unexplained or paranormal. You might have an injury and be stuck there until sunrise. Because let's face it, the signal out here isn't exactly the best. Most of the time, in fact, all the time, it's pretty much on SOS mode.
As we go about our daily lives, it's easy to believe that we are alone in this world. But what if I told you that we're not? What if I told you that there are mysterious entities lurking in the shadows and potentially living right here amongst us? These beings defy explanation. They're existing on the fringes of what we would call reality. They possess powers beyond our comprehension, and their true nature is still shrouded in secrecy. While you may dismiss these claims as myths or legends, the truth is far more unsettling. If even one of these thousands of reports are real, then these beings are already walking amongst us, sharing our airspace and even potentially interbreeding with our own kind. Who are they? What do they want? These are still the questions that haunt our everyday thoughts. The truth is that we may never know or fully understand their motives. So as you navigate your way through life, remember to always stay vigilant, for the mysteries that surround you are not always a million miles away.